When I was on my journey to reaching six figures of net worth, I made a lot of mistakes. And in particular, when it comes to mistakes, I committed the three deadly sins of personal finance. And for everybody, this might be different. But in this video, I just wanted to tell you what my three deadly sins for personal finance are and why it hindered my progress. I really, truly believe that if I didn't make these mistakes, I would have reached six figures of net worth and Coast Fire way sooner than I did. It wouldn't have taken me until the age of 30 from 24. I think I could have probably shaved off a year or two if I didn't make these mistakes. And so the first thing that I did, the first mistake that you could be making is you could be being too open about your personal finances with your peers. Now, hearing that come from me could seem counterintuitive because I have a YouTube channel, right? But just so that it's clear, my family, my friends don't know about my YouTube channel. They don't know what my videos are about. They don't watch me, and I don't advertise it. I don't advertise it on my personal Instagram, and I don't talk about it. So I feel like I can freely speak about personal finance because I know that there won't be familiar eyes watching. And if there are familiar eyes watching, I don't know about it because they haven't told me. So that's the first thing. Secondly, for the normal people who don't have YouTube channels and who don't share the information for educational purposes, it could make things uncomfortable. Your business could become table talk. People that you know will start to know more about things that you might not want them to know. You might not want them to know your credit score or how much you have in your savings account or even the goals that you have in a year or two, because you don't know if they would see those as realistic or feasible, right? You don't want to have the fear of being made fun of or judged by people that you care about. And so that's another reason why you shouldn't be too open with your peers. And lastly, it invites leeches. It invites people who could ask you for things, sometimes sabotaging your goals unknowingly, right? It could invite unwanted opinions, people straying you away from your goals. Like I said again, not necessarily in a malicious manner, but because they think they know what's best for you and they care about you. But even though they don't agree with what your goals might be, it doesn't mean that it won't knock you off of your personal goals and off of your purpose. And so these are some reasons why that is the first deadly sin of personal finance. You can never be too open with your peers because you just never know what other people could see for your life or what words people could throw towards your goals. And so my first rule is to just keep it quiet. The second huge mistake that I made is that I lacked boundaries. And this could look like a few different scenarios. And when it came to financial boundaries, I lacked every single one that you could. So for me, the lack of boundaries manifested in being too open with certain information that you should be able to tell people is none of their business, right? In particular, your parents. So that could look like being open about when you get your paychecks, how often you're paid, right? How much you have in your savings account, what your pay per hour is. Giving this information, like I said in my last one, it opens the door to leeches. It allows for you to be taken advantage of. And so the people asking you these questions know that. And that's why they bank on your kindness and maybe even your naivete in order to get this information from you and to benefit from it. There's no reason, unless your parents are truly trying to help you set up a savings account or an investment account, there's really no reason for them to know when you get paid, how often, and how much. They don't need to know your hourly pay, that you're salaried, or anything like that in order to help you. And so lacking that boundary really set me far really, really bad. Second way that you can lack boundaries is by not saying no. And this can manifest in so many different ways, but the main way for me was always giving up my money whenever anybody asked. And this was especially difficult for me while I was growing up, just because you feel obligated to help the people that you grow up with. And because I felt that obligation, then it didn't matter how much money I would be asked for. I would never argue, but I would be very angry about it inside. And so that is how I learned to uphold those boundaries, because I realized that I would be upset if I said yes, and I was the only one upset, right? So everybody was happy, and it only depended on me being upset within myself. And so lacking boundaries can look like always giving up your paycheck, and also always feeling as if you have to have a reason why you can't give your money away, right? That is also a lack of a boundary, because everybody knows, especially adults, everybody knows that no is a full sentence. And so if you ever feel like you're being guilt tripped for saying no, if you ever feel like you have to over explain why you need your own money to pay your bills, just know that you're being taken advantage of. I know that sometimes people could find themselves in semi-desperate situations, right? But I guarantee that if you're the type of person that I think you are, and you feel guilt for saying no, even though you need your money to pay your bills, something tells me that you wouldn't put someone else in that situation, even if you were in a desperate situation, right? Just keep in mind that at the end of the day, people will figure it out. They will always figure it out, and you are not the last resort. Just keep that in mind as well. Once I learned that I am not the last resort, it really took a lot of the pressure off of me. I learned actually that most times the people who say yes the quickest are the first people that are contacted. You're not the last resort. And because of that, you should be a little less flexible with your wallet and your paycheck. And the third deadly sin of personal finance is being impatient. And before you click off, I know a lot of people say be patient, but my reasons as to why this is a deadly sin could be seen as a little bit selfish, right? The first being impatient with your finances, right? Focusing more on the goal and not necessarily the journey is not good for your mental health. It can make you jealous, it can make you bitter, and that takes away from your focus and your concentration. And the last thing that you want to lose when trying to build up your wealth is your concentration and focus. You really need to stay the course, and you don't always have to be at 100, but you really do need to stay the course when it comes to being patient and when it comes to being focused about your finances, because it's so easy to be knocked off of your square. And I know I say this a lot when I make videos, but it's true. You can be knocked off of your square so easily just by keeping up with the Joneses, right? You want to buy the new car because you see your neighbors have that new car, or you see that they have a new bag, new shoes. That is an easy distraction that, again, can set you back. It can set you far back in terms of your goals. And it'll have you thinking, like, man, if only I had just focused on myself. If I had just focused on myself, then I wouldn't need to worry about where I am now. And I would be so much farther ahead. At least I found that I was thinking that. And sort of building off of that, it can lead to bad decision making, right? So, yes, keeping up with the Joneses is a bad decision, but it could also lead to bad decisions that could have a bigger effect on your finances. The biggest or the most relevant example that I can think of is using margin in order to trade in the stock market. I've heard so many stories about people who didn't quite have the money that they needed in order to keep up with people that they saw on our Wall Street bets on Reddit, right? And then the next thing you know, they were posting losses in there that is more than what you have in your bank account. So how would you cover that? You are now in debt, and all of that could have been avoided if you had just been patient and used what you already had. And lastly, if you're not patient and lose your focus, you could end up missing out on the journey. And honestly, I have missed out on so much of my journey just because I made decisions that were pretty permanent, not necessarily from being impatient and trying to keep up with others, but just wanting to see that big number, right? And so because of that, there's so many milestones that I missed that I wasn't able to record and that I can't even show you guys when I do reach new milestones because I wasn't focused on that. I wasn't keeping track of where I was in real time. And because I wasn't doing that, I can't show you when I made my first 7K or when I, invested my first stock even. I can only go based off of my memory. And so You know, when you do reach certain goals, you start to want to reach back for that nostalgia and to be able to show where you started, right? Because it also adds to your relatability. And so staying focused and just focusing on your own progress is super important because of that aspect alone. So those are the three deadly sins of personal finance that definitely kept me from reaching Coast Fi until I was 30. I definitely could have been Coast Fi in my 20s if I had not made those three mistakes, right? If I wasn't too open with my peers about my financial progress, if I was more patient and not focused on necessarily the goal, but the steps that it takes in order to reach the goal, right? The behavior. And also having boundaries. Now that I'm in my 30s, have rock solid boundaries, but I didn't always. And because of that, it took me until I reached 30 or 31 for Coast Fi. Now, 30 is not too late, right? It's never too late. As they say, the best time to start investing is today. And the better time to have started investing was yesterday, right? You live and you learn. Those are the mistakes that I made. And I just wanted to bring them to you guys so that you could avoid them in the future and have as many gains as possible on your financial journey. I want to know from you guys in the comments. Let me know, what are some mistakes that you guys made on your financial journey? Let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to discuss it all with you. And I will see you in the next video.